Chapter 1. Dante steps into the oppressive darkness, a void so profound it feels as though it could swallow him whole. The heavy silence wraps around him like a suffocating shroud, and he can almost sense the madness lurking just beyond the edges of his perception, ready to pounce on anyone who dares to linger too long. As he lowered himself cautiously to the ground, he was met with an unsettling sound that pierced the silence, an audible crunch reminiscent of stepping on a pile of ancient, brittle twigs long turned to stone. The noise echoed in the stillness, a reminder of the fragility surrounding him. A brilliant glow erupted from within him, radiating outward with an intensity that seemed to banish the encroaching shadows. The light surged forth, creating a shimmering barrier, a protective bubble that stood tall against the oppressive darkness. Even as his illumination raced outward, he could sense that it was not entirely eradicating the shadows. Instead, it felt as if he were merely displacing them, much like a diver creating a bubble underwater. The darkness receded with each pulse of his brightness, revealing the strange world he had landed in. As the light cascaded around him, he caught glimpses of unfamiliar shapes. The landscape unfolded in a breathtaking display, drawing him deeper into its depths even as he stood at the threshold of this newly revealed realm. The sound he had heard was not the familiar crackling of dry sticks underfoot, but rather the chilling crunch of ancient bones, brittle and fragile from years of decay, a sharp and unsettling crunch that reverberated with the brittle quality of long-buried bones disturbed from their ancient rests. The sound filled the air with an eerie reminder of what had once been, as the remnants of the past whispered stories forgotten by time. The echoes of an ancient conflict unfolded, a war that must have raged a millennium ago. Piles of armor strewn around him, bodies decomposed long ago, most bones turned to dust, leaving only the dead steel that now lay in a vast sea of shells. Twisted, lifeless trees, their branches clawing at the darkened sky, like the desperate fingers of the damned. All around him, beasts lay silent. Enormous shells resembling a bizarre amalgamation of a beetle and a dragon dotted the ground. Their hulking forms, long bereft of life, created a surreal tapestry against the barren terrain. The shadows cast by these colossal remains stretched across the horizon, transforming the landscape into a grim, jagged mountain range that twisted menacingly against the sky. Dante's attention was set on the size of the war. He felt a deep curiosity pulse through him. How far beneath this battlefield would he have to delve to reach the untouched soil buried beneath? The thought weighed heavily on him, and he could almost hear the whispers of the fallen. This is a dead world. Why would they send her here? Dante pondered, a wave of despair washing over him as he surveyed the barren landscape. He started to look for the light. The light he wanted was that of his wife. There was no light, at least not close enough, or God forgive sufficient enough to be seen. Yet, amidst the pervasive darkness, he felt a distant energy, a flicker of something familiar that sent tremors through his soul. It was her energy, undeniably hers. He could almost feel it brushing against his consciousness like a gentle whisper. He sensed it was different this time. It felt shaken and fractured, its once vibrant essence now marred by shadows of sorrow and pain. The realization gripped him like a vice, and he steeled himself. Bones skittered at his feet as he tensed his whole body in an effort to gain his footing. He leaned down to grip the rubble beneath him, then launched forward with explosive force. The sudden burst of energy echoed through the air, producing a resounding clap reverberating like thunder. An endless trail of rusted armor, bones, and dust trailed behind Dante as he raced toward the life force he knew was hers. Everything that had transpired in this world had occurred in less than the blink of an eye. Yet it felt like time had conspired against him. As he fixed his gaze on the pale, flickering light now on the horizon, a chilling realization seized him. A horrifying thought sent a shiver down his spine. What if time runs much slower here than we had ever imagined? He murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. He instinctively shook his head, trying to dispel the notion like an unwelcome shadow. Yet deep down, he could not ignore the gnawing sense of dread that clung to him like a second skin. He had been too complacent, lulled into a false sense of security in a world of conflict and chaos. This man, who had witnessed the cataclysmic end of entire worlds, bore the scars of countless battles fought against the psychotic whims of capricious gods and the dark machinations of sinister cults. Each encounter had left an indelible mark on his soul, and while he had witnessed horrors too numerous to recount, he believed that it was hardly worth reliving. Nevertheless, amidst the chaos and destruction, he held on to a frail hope, a belief that not all people were inherently wicked, and that there still existed beings capable of genuine goodness and unwavering loyalty. This idea was what defined his actions when he saw the beaten and torn body of Lorraine, his wife, huddled in a small outcropping, which must have been the remains of a mountaintop. The sight of this made him once again think about the depth. How deep would he have to go? How many corpses and old rotted armor would he have to go through to reach the bottom? "What kind of place is this?" he muttered, as if the thought was so strong that he had to say it aloud. He took cautious steps forward, each footfall heavy with a growing sense of unease. There, lying motionless on the cold, hard ground, was Lorraine, his wife. The shock washed over him in waves eclipsing all rational thought. An unsettling stillness now replaces her once vibrant spirit. Dante stared in shock at the woman sitting before him, her appearance striking a deep chord of fear within him. She looked disheveled, her hair matted and wild. The terror in her wide eyes was palpable, reflecting a profound sense of dread that paralyzed him for a moment. It was as if his mind struggled to process the reality of her presence. He even blinked, trying to convince himself he was not dreaming. His heart raced, matching the frantic rhythm of her breath as he felt a chill run down his spine. The woman's mouth quivered as she began to open it, but no words came forth. Only a silent gasp, a plea for help that resonated in the still air. Her expression shifted, an overwhelming sense of dread taking over her features. Lorraine's face initially mirrored the shock and disbelief that painted Dante's features as he continued to gaze at her. But soon, the horror that once held him captive morphed into something darker, rage. Lorraine's expression twisted, contorting into a mask of vengeance that sent a tremor through Dante's core. The sight of it, raw and unrestrained, was something he would wish to erase from his memory forever, a haunting image that would echo in his mind for the entirety of his long, uncertain life.